What's up? So, I've been, I don't know, but lately I've been getting real annoyed by the term African American. And every time I see it, I am reminded of how divisive the term is. Um, Especially since living in this country, I know how many African Americans view other black people who are not from this country. So it's to me it feels very divisive, and I just get annoyed. And there are a few organizations, whether they consider themselves progressive or revolutionary, who have African American in their title. And I don't know about you, but um, that if you're an organization that's promoting unity or anything that would require African or Black people to work together, having African American in your title seems to only marginalize and separate out African Americans, quote unquote African Americans, on their own, and is very exclusionary in who can participate. Because if I am an African from Jamaica, if I'm an African from Brazil, if I am an African from the Gambia, if I am an African from Canada that currently resides in the United States or may not reside in the United States, I would not be able to participate because I would not consider myself an African American. And I personally, if you've ever heard me call myself an African American, raise your hand. Like, if you know me personally, or if you don't know me personally, if you've ever heard me say, well, I'm an African American, I don't recall ever using that term to describe myself. I've always been Black or a mixture of my parents' culture, which is Jamaican, Grenadian, or American, of which is the culture that I was born into in terms of the United States. So I've been very reluctant to even take that on as an identity, and I refuse to. Because even with these progressive organizations that incorporate African American in their title, and they say they are going to they're going to, they don't like the United States. They don't like this thing that's been oppressing them for so long. However, it's a contradiction to say you don't like it, but then use the identity in your title, and it's very contradictory. And then it's like, how can other Africans from other places join your fight, join your struggle when you don't even unite, when you're marginalizing yourself? And I don't want to name any organizations because I haven't dug deeper than the name. And honestly speaking, if there's an organization that identifies themselves as African American, I don't really take them seriously, because it's like, if you are really about the struggle for Black people, then you would not marginalize yourself in that way. I remember I did a video once when I used to do hair videos back in the day. I did the other channel, and I spoke about African American hair. And I asked the question, what exactly is African American hair? What makes African American hair different than Central American hair? Africans who live in Central America, or Africans who live in the Caribbean, Africans here who live in South America, African people here who live on the continent, African people here who live in Canada, or African people here who live in Europe. What makes African American hair? And when a when a product is described for African American hair, I can definitely see how that can exclude a certain people out of the fray, and makes it even seem like there is something so different and so special about African American hair that it needs to have a product named after it. And so I made it clear that there's no such thing as African American hair, that we all have African hair and our different variations, and if you go across the continent, up and down, north and south, east and west. The hair textures on the continent vary so greatly that you can't even say that ours is specific to North America. It's just definitely not. And so when you, just like in that example, African American is very exclusionary. It's very exclusionary, and really drives wedges, in my opinion, to the struggle for freedom and independence, and even the struggle to unite us as a people. When you call yourself an African American, but that's on you. You can say whatever you want to say. I'm not knocking you, but it really, in my opinion, just coming from me, like I really can't, if you really about the struggle for black people, marginalizing yourself and saying, African American is really weird to me. Just like if I was in England, because there's a definite Caribbean, what do they call themselves? It's in England, there's a Caribbean, British Caribbean community. I think that's what they identified as there's a movement of British Caribbean people. So if you're not British Caribbean, then you can't really unite with the struggle of British Caribbean people. So it's that marginalization and taking on the identity and nationality of these borders that were inflicted upon us and made us into these marginalized people. And this continues to separate us to this day. A sister that I know from Bahamas was talking about the immigration question. I don't live on Facebook actually. I'm on Facebook, during the day sometimes, and I get lit about situations. And of course, with this Arizona law passing, I was very livid. And I put on my Facebook, I said, every colored person in the United States should be on the side of the immigrant in this case. And there are, based upon, y'all saw my immigration video, um, any person of color who unites with the state law to exclude immigrants and come down so harshly on immigrants does not understand. I don't think they have they don't have the processes in their brain to critically and analyze the situation. Because what happens is that there are some levels of these types of bills or laws in your state legislature. And what we don't understand is that as black people, as brown people, as colored people within the confines of the United States, we are always open season for these types of laws. Um, and when we're talking about immigration, we're talking not only about the Latino, Hispanic community, we're talking about the African community. We're talking about more, if not more stringent, if not downright non-humanitarian look at how they treat the Haitians in Miami. I used to live in Miami, so I used to see every other night where they would take the white Cubans into the shores of Miami and toss and basically criminalize the Haitian and throw them in jail for trying to get some out of their country because of the political situations that was happening there. And so I can only imagine that, Florida right now is rolling its hands trying to get something like this passed if it has not already passed in that state. So you have to understand that these laws are going to affect not Hispanic, they're going to affect you. And even if you from Compton, or even if you from NYC, if you happen to look like an immigrant, might have a little accent, lisp or something, somebody has the right to come up to you and ask you for identification. And if you don't fit the bill, they can have the right to take you into jail and make your life a living hell until whatever time they seem like they want to go ahead and do that. And so we have to understand that in that situation, white Europeans and white immigrants to this country will not be treated in the same way. Even Asians might ride that line a little bit because they're not so called in the class where, or in the section where they would contribute to crime in the United States. So I think that as colored people, we definitely have to look at these things critically and assess it and be able to move forward. And so I started on African American, but just definitely, I think that marginalizing ourselves as Black people can have has had, because it hasn't. We've been marginalized, fractionalized, and divided based upon our nations, our borders, what have you, for so long that we don't know how to be one people. We don't know how to have one objective, and it's a detrimental effect to us. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think I've gone on too long, but I definitely wanted to be able to talk about that today. So, peace.